I want to go back to this fetal alcohol syndrome, and it seems to have a number of names. Can you explain the nature of this condition and why it has so many names?
For many years, people were defining it at different levels of severity. There is something called fetal alcohol syndrome, which is supposed to be the strongest effects of alcohol. There was fetal alcohol effects. Then it goes through other names all the way to alcohol-related neurodevelopmental disease. And in recent years, it was decided that basically it's different degrees of the same syndrome, and it was put under the umbrella name of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder.
I see.
But it's basically the same thing, just different degrees.
Now, it's characterized by what? Well, before we get into the cause of it, how do you recognize it?
In the strongest cases in fetal alcohol syndrome, first of all, there is mental retardation.
How severe?
IQ is below 70,
Oh,
60,
quite
so
serious.
it's a serious mental retardation. There is a number of facial malformations. So we're talking about the eyes being set apart, a nose is small and flat. Actually, one of the strongest or the most common things is the upper lip, which tends to be very thin, and the indentation, the philtrum, which tends to be flat. So actually, doctors in the delivery room are told that if they see a baby with a flat philtrum and very thin upper lip, to look for other signs that this might be a baby that was affected by alcohol during pregnancy.
And they have serious also, it's not only IQ, but they have behavioral disorders too.
In the milder forms, anatomically, they look normal, but they have behavioral problems. So they have a form of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. They have problems with abstract concepts. They cannot think math. They cannot think things that are completely abstract. Behavioral, in some cases it's even considered a form of autism.
I see.
So it's very complicated, and it all boils down to rewiring of the brain apparently during pregnancy.
It's early pregnancy, isn't it? Or
The strongest manifestation, the strongest sensitivity is during early pregnancy, and that's one of the reasons why most of organizations have moved to education. Because it actually, based on our results, we're talking on something like the third week of pregnancy, actual embryonic development.
So before they even know they're pregnant?
So when the woman starts thinking that perhaps I might be pregnant, it's the highest sensitivity. That doesn't mean that later alcohol drinking won't affect, but milder versions.
Yeah, because I read one paper that said you just had to do one binge drinking in that period, and the embryo is really damaged.
Yeah, I mean, the field has advantages and disadvantages. For the basic understanding, we have the alcoholic mothers, and there's no question that there's alcohol involvement. But there are reported cases of binge drinking that caused a full fetal alcohol syndrome.
I see.
So it can happen.
And once it happens, they can't do anything to correct it.
There's no cure. Most of these children, and actually adults, because these are people that are going to grow to old age, need support all their life. Because if they have problems running their life, they're going to need somebody to support. As children, they'll need special teachers and special classes, depending on the level of severity of the effect, psychologists, all kinds of help to help them thrive and continue.
Now, your breakthrough is on the molecular level to understand the process by which it results in that condition. What precisely happens?
When we drink alcohol, we have to get rid of it. And this alcohol uses a number of proteins. I mean, we change it eventually.
To get rid of it?
To get rid of it from the body. And eventually we convert the alcohol that's in beer or wine or whiskey into vinegar, acetic acid. And actually the same proteins are the ones that take vitamin A and make it into retinoic acid. And retinoic acid is a must for the embryo. You need the right amount at the right time. And if alcohol is there, then the enzymes, the proteins get distracted. They're getting rid of alcohol instead of making retinoic acid.
I see.
So the embryo continues to develop because it won't stop, but it's not doing it under suboptimal conditions, and that causes all the malformations. And
so the alcohol is in effect a competitor for the key protein and takes it away.
It's a competitor.
And is there just one single protein, or is there more?
It's a whole family of genes.
Whole family.
It's a whole family of genes. We know at least of 4 that are the main ones. And actually, one of our results is we've identified the one that in the embryo is the first target for the alcohol. And we know from mutations in mice that the mice without this enzyme actually die during pregnancy. So
I see. So it would be a cause also of miscarriages and other things?
There is a study that came from Denmark where they looked at pregnancy, at the abortions, spontaneous abortions, and it's a 3-fold increase in spontaneous abortions. And they also they have another study looking at stillbirth, and also it's a 3-fold increase in stillbirth.
I see. So it really is a detrimental.
And actually, we're talking about the children that are born, and then they are severely damaged, but they will continue to grow, and like I said, they'll get to old age.
Well, the message seems to be that the new labels on wine and beer and all that says alcohol may be dangerous for your health, especially if you're pregnant, they should be bigger than they are.
Like they should be in cigarettes, but it is a problem, and education is a very important part. But we believe that if we understand what's the cause, what's molecularly hiding behind it, we might be able to do other kinds of intervention.
Like what? What could you do?
I mean, this is science fiction.
Okay,
it hasn't been
right.
tested.
Yes, right.
If it's really a competition for vitamin A, could we supplement some things with vitamin A? I mean, we drink milk with vitamin D and E. Could we?
Oh, you mean take?
Extra
people should take
A.
extra vitamin A.
I mean, we've shown that in embryos under experimental conditions, if we treat with alcohol, but we increase the doses of vitamin A that the embryo sees, we can block the effects of the alcohol.
I see, because then there's so much there.
But like I said, this is science fiction. We have to be responsible. There is an idea of perhaps increasing vitamin A or just supplementing vitamin A to accepted doses. I mean, not to. This is not a cure. It hasn't been tested. So,
right.
I
So
don't know if I should.
Yeah,
don't do it.
In other words, don't get drunk and take
Not
vitamin
until
A
it's
at the
been
same
tested
time. Yeah.
properly
Until
with all the right controls. Because also an excess of vitamin A will cause birth defects.
Oh, it really? What
Yes.
kind of birth defects?
Very similar to the effects of alcohol.
I see.
Mental retardation, malformations.
So you just need just the right
So
amount.
it has to be exactly the right amount.
How does the body do that?
That's the
magical.
magic of the
It
body.
really is
That's the
magical if you
magic
think
of
of
the
it.
body.
If excess would cause problems and deficiency causes problems, then you got to hit it right.
So in the case of retinoic acid controls the amounts of the enzymes, of the proteins that make retinoic acid. So if there's too much retinoic acid, it stops making these proteins to bring the levels a little bit down and keep it at the right concentration, the right amount.
Okay, what I want to do now is talk about the implications of your breakthrough on other kinds of areas, because clearly it's not just for this particular condition. If it applies to epigenesis generally, that every time sequence of what happens has to be the exact amount. And I also want to go into the question of, does it happen to everybody? But we'll wait for our break and then we'll resume the discussion.